Stardew Valley is a game that surprised me, and I'll admit it, I'm sad I did not play it sooner. The game itself was released in 2016 on PC and 2017 for consoles, and only recently I just saw on the GamePass, so I decided to give it a shot. The main concept behind the game is actually fairly simple. You are a city boy and you're starting to get tired of that life because you're working at a Joja Corp office job. You check your drawer and then you find that letter that your grandpa gives to you, and it has a deed to a farm in Stardew Valley. You go to Stardew Valley and, well, you start working on your farm. And what this game does particularly well is there's no real sense of a tutorial. There's small little objectives like that give you hints of what to do, but you're being thrown in because, well, you're a city boy. You've never done farming before, which I think works really well, and they do it really well in this game. Now, your first couple days on the farm are going to be really rough, mainly due to the fact that you're going to be almost constantly running out of energy before the day's even halfway through, which is good. It makes sense because, and again, a new lifestyle. This is where the skills come in. There is 5 skills: farming, foraging, mining, combat, and fishing. These 5 skills basically make up the whole base of the game, which is really nice because they're not locked behind anything necessarily. All you have to do is practice that skill. Now, all the skills have in total of 10 levels, and at level 5 and 10, you'll get I guess it's a perk point of some sort. No, it will only be for that skill. You don't have this insane skill tree like Skyrim would or Fallout 4 does. One kind of interesting detail I didn't notice until my second playthrough is that your level 10 perk is actually based on what your level 5 perk is. So you'll have 2 choices for each of the level 5 and 10, except your level 5 one will affect what choice you have for the level 10. Kind of nice detail, well, as a lot of games do not do that. On this note of skills, the way I'll be stylizing this video is with how I want to talk about the game is based on the skills. I'll be using the skills as a form of timestamp, and so if you're kind of interested in with the farming part of the game or the foraging, you can just go right to there, because I bet you don't want to hear me for probably 10 to 15 minutes. Now, since we're playing a farming game, one of the skills is farming. And so with the farming skill, how do we level up? You level it up by harvesting crops. No, not using the watering can. The watering can and the hoe do not give off any experience for this, which is kind of surprising to me. Farming does one thing really well. It makes you cash pretty early, except the thing is, it eats up your energy based on how many crops you have. For example, the 15 parsnips that you're given at the beginning, simply watering those every day will cost you pretty much like a fourth or even a half of your energy based on your efficiency with farming. Now, with farming, every season, which there is 4 of, that being in the order of spring, summer, fall, and winter, each season can grow their own crops. Well, besides winter. Winter is used for a different thing. We'll talk about that more later. So you're going to be spending the first 3 seasons doing a lot of heavy farming because it can make you a lot of money early on, unlike the other choices of skills anyways. Now, every level you get in your farming, you'll get usually a new type of crafting recipe, whether this be a sprinkler to automate the watering for you, or to be different types of fertilizers to do different effects. However, the more unnoticed and the very untapped potential is from the farm animals you can get. You can get a barn and a chicken coop. Now, the chicken coop can actually house bunnies and ducks as well, and little dinos if you spend the time to get them. Animal products make a lot of money and are honestly pretty easy to take care of, besides feeding them. Feeding them during certain seasons can be kind of painful because you'll have to be spending money at Marnie's for some hay. Now we're going to talk the more in general of the skill, like the area around it or the topic of it. I don't really like farming. I mean, I didn't really use it in my first year of the game, but then I started using it and realizing the untapped potential. Mainly specifically, again, of the animals. Those animals make a lot more money, and yes, they are very pricey. I mean, a chicken costs 1,200 monies, which is a lot. But the animals make a lot of money, especially if you can turn their product into a more artisan-based good. Now let's get into the really interesting part of the farming in this game. Once you harvest a crop, you don't usually get seeds back unless it's a very specific type of crop, which I guess makes sense. However, it also makes it so you have to spend money to purchase the seeds from Pierre, and then you can go plant them. Which, note, some plants can take up to 23 days, which is just crazy to me. Now, I believe the most infamous plant is the starfruit, mainly due to the fact that if you want to make money the fastest, growing starfruit seems to be the way to go. Mainly due to the fact that you can put it in a keg and turn it into starfruit wine, which I think sells for 3,500 each bottle. which it does take a while to ferment though, in it, a long time. So that's why people make sheds just full of kegs, which is hilarious to me still. There is one thing I want to note on before we leave this area is I like the idea that the only really good form of automation you can get is the auto grabbers for the animals, so they'll grab all the animal products for you, or the sprinklers. I think the idea of not being able to automate everything is great because you'll be turning into another form of a Joja Corp, most likely. It's kind of a good symbolism and a good meaning, and in general makes the game a lot more enjoyable, especially with the art style it works with too. The next skill is Foraging, which is a skill you'll be leveling up passively. I doubt some days you'll focus on it, but I don't know. Foraging is the skill of going out and chopping down trees or grabbing items off the ground, particularly like fruits or vegetables during each season, which each season does have its own unique vegetables and fruits to grab. I will admit though, the foraging proficiency makes chopping down trees excellent. I mean, really good. It's really nice not having your energy be eaten up, so you have to spend 6 minutes munching on things. I do find that the later levels of foraging take a long time to get, which makes sense since there's a lot of ways to level it up, but that's a little detail I noticed in one of my playthroughs. Foraging actually does something kind of interesting. It gives you a lot of recipes for food to help you with energy, allowing you to do a lot more in the day. Now, foraging as a skill is a skill that kind of relies on mining, mainly due to the fact of getting the better axe. The better axe is so much good. So much good, yes. No, it is so much better, mainly due to the fact that you're just chopping down trees with the max axe in 2 hits and then 1 hit for the trunk, which it feels great. Foraging is also helpful with mainly just getting wood in general, as one of the perks for the level 5 is to get 25% more wood, which may not sound like a big deal, but basically it allows you to make a lot of farming-based structures a lot quicker and a lot easier. I think this skill kind of helps out with more the style of making everyday little chores a little bit easier. Now let's get to mining. Mining is one of the skills that people will pick up very early, mainly due to the fact that it is a very lucrative way to make cash, mainly due to the fact of using the caves. In Pelican Town, which is the town of Stardew, you do find and have a cave that has 120 floors. Every 5 floors you get an elevator, except to progress down those floors you must find a ladder, which can either come from enemies, just being spawned on the ground, or mining. Some days it feels like the ladder is impossible to find, but overall, you put in some time and effort and a couple bombs, you'll get through the floors very easily. There are 4 ores to upgrade your weapons or your tools with. Number 1 being copper, which is the weakest but is a noticeable difference, iron, which is huge, gold, which is just beautiful, and then the new one, which is iridium. Iridium is some pretty nice stuff, pretty rare to find, but in general, you can get it from finding geodes or going to the Skull Cave. More on that later. I think this skill is often most likely the first leveled up to 10 skill, due to the fact that those ores make all the other skills a lot easier to level up. This skill allows you to branch off very easily. Now, fishing is one of the more altruistic skills, mainly due to the fact that simply, it's just a really chill skill to level up. You simply can go to lakes, and during different seasons, in different times, certain fish will pop up. Fishing is one of the skills that's introduced fairly early on. If I remember correctly, it's the 2nd day where you get your first fishing rod. And it's a skill that early on can make a lot of money if you put the time into it. Some people don't like this skill, however, because you're not really doing much, and I see where they're coming from. There's really not much to talk about fishing, as it's its own really pretty self-explanatory skill. You can get different kinds of bobbers and fishing rods, and you can even get treasure chests from fishing, but I think the reason I like it is because of how simple it can be. Now, the last skill to cover is combat, and combat kind of coincides more with mining than anything else, as you're using both the skills almost simultaneously. Now, with combat, usually it will just only increase your health, however, later on the levels you will get more crafting recipes for rings or pieces of equipment. Combat is probably the shortest skill due to the fact that there really isn't much behind it. kind of like fishing. But with combat, it actually is super nice having the amount of health allowing you to get through some caves without having to spend multiple days trying to get to it. This wraps it up for this video on Stardew. I could go on and on about this game, however, I think to keep time, we're going to talk about the community center and the other caves in the next video.